Hello and welcome to episode 7 of our RPG tutorials. Today we are continuing on our character screen, although only about half the work is actually on the character screen. Before I get started, make sure that you like, subscribe, hit that comment up. That would be really helpful. Help propel these tutorials forward for me. Anyway, would really help. Thanks. All right. So today our goals are we are going to set up the hero classes. The first of which, the base, will be unit. Out of unit, we will create hero as a child class. Hero will have 2 child classes of warrior and mage. Then we will set like basic stats or attributes. We'll also create a stat pack. I didn't put that in here, so we'll create the stat pack, and we'll create arrow selectors for all the different attributes, which are the different stats in the stat pack. And then we'll put it all together and we'll test it. And we'll test it just by flopping back and forth between warrior mage and seeing the attributes flop. I doubt I'll get further than that, but if time permits, I will go further. Okay, so first off, let's get rid of this. Second off, let's start our unit classes. So in gameplay, we will have unit, add new item, unit, alright, inside gameplay, let's just create our whole structure real quick. We'll have units, and then we will have, let's take this guy since it's blank, let's save it, copy, paste, rename, hero. No, because we actually don't want to rename everything. Hero. Then inside the units folder, we'll have the heroes folder. Inside heroes, let's actually fix this up real quick before we copy it anymore. I should have fixed it up to start with, but I didn't. Hero, fix that out. Let's do this. Okay. Save that real fast. Now we'll copy and paste it around. Copy. And then here we go. VV. No. Rename. Mage. Rename. Warrior. Okay. Warrior. Mage. So we have unit. Fix this one. What did that say? Class. That's what it says. Fix this guy. Unit is not hero, it's unit. And then hero is not unit, it's hero. And then we grab our regions. Okay, so what we have is we have our unit, our hero, our mage, and our warrior. So currently they are all standalone. For unit, we are going to basically just give it really basic functionality right now, which we can find that in animated 2D. So it's going to be a child of animated 2D. Public, oops, unit. So that's our constructor, and our constructor is going to have to line up with the constructor of animated 2D. So base, and then in here we know we have the path, we have oh, we don't need it like that. Actually, we need it's a string. Path, position, dims, frames, color, vector 2, pose, whoops, pose, vector 2 dims, vector 2 frames, and color. Okay, let's hit all that. That all just gets passed through. No big deal. Path, pose, dims, frames, color. Sweet. Actually, we're not going to pass color. Everything that we declare in unit is not going to be colored by default. Doesn't mean we can't add a color to it, but it's not going to be colored by default. Okay, because what we're actually going to be using is colors for, you know, like green for poison and blue for frost, red for burning, so on and so forth. At least that's the plan for right now, so we need to keep those available. Okay, for right now we're going to be done here. We'll come back in here and add StatPack later. So now hero extends or is a child of unit. So now we need to do that. So public hero, and hero is going to have all the same things here because it doesn't really get that much more specific. We still need a generic path. We still need the position, the dims, and the frame. We may not need the frames. We're going to do it anyway. So base, and then it's path, pose, dims, frames. Okay, done. And then the reason that we have the intermediate class between unit and mage and warrior is that heroes may have some things that are different than mobs, right? So that's kind of that extension. You could also have NPC, right? So you can have multiple different things that are units that have slightly different factors in them. Like heroes will have potentially some input controls in them, whereas mobs wouldn't have that because mobs are mobs and you don't control them, or in general you don't. Doesn't mean we don't for sure, but in general. Okay, so now in mage is a hero, so we'll say it's a hero. And then public mage. Sometimes it just doesn't do what I want. Okay, and we have base, but okay, so we're gonna do a little different here. So we know for hero we need a path, a pose, a dims, and frames. So mage is gonna have a set path, so we don't need to pass that in. We will need to get its position, so vector 2 pose. We will need to get its dimensions, vector 2 dot. We don't actually need to even get its dims, actually. So that's different. But new vector 2. So we should know what we're passing in for mage. Like we should know how big it is, right? So let's go with I don't know. How big? Let me look what I did in the I did 50s. Okay, that's fine. 50, 50. New vector 2. Right now we just have a 1-1 frame, but you should know what your sprite sheet is for your mage or for your warrior. So you should know these pieces of data. You don't need to be passing them in here all the time. And then in here we are going to say we're just going to pick one of these things, and in this case we'll just pick the base to be circle. The reason that we're doing that is because it'll actually break if we don't pass anything, which is something we could fix, but we're not going to right now. So we don't want to take the time out and get distracted. We got a lot to get to today. 2D units. Heroes. I have a feeling this one's going to go long again, but that is just the way it works. Okay, so we have circle, and then we're going to do the same thing for warrior. So we're going to copy that, come over here, public warrior, paste that in. Instead of circle, do SQA, just cuz. Okay, and then we close that all up. Whoops. Okay, and then warrior is also a hero. So mage is a hero, is a unit, and a unit is an animated 2D. Makes sense. I hope it does. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to deal with our stat packs. What is a stat pack, you might ask? A stat pack is a set of stats in a very loopable and searchable manner. I don't know that I did these before. And if I did, sorry, you'll already know what they are. Maybe I'm doing them a little different. Probably refined them a little bit since last time, if I did them. I don't think I did. I don't think we did stats in general. But anyway, so first things first, these are things that are within a unit. So we're going to add new item, and that is going to be a stat pack. Stat pack. And stat pack is full of stats, which we will create in just a second. Done and public. Okay. Stat pack. Happy days. Okay. Inside our units folder, we're going to add a folder for stat pack. And then inside stat pack, we're going to add a new item for stat. And then we load it up. Basically, a stat is a key value pair with some extra stuff involved later. Right now, it's just going to be a key value pair. We're going to leave it at that. So we have string name, and we have float value. And both those should be public. Okay, public. Annoying. Really annoying. Okay, so we have our stat class. We have name value. We need to pass those in. So string name float value, and then name equals name value equals value. Okay. Very simple, nothing special there. That's all a stat is for now. And then, oh, we need the ability to add to this value. Eventually, you should make this like a private variable or a protected variable, float, that is, the value. But we're not going to go that far. I don't want to get too deep into those kinds of weeds when we're trying to get all this done. But one way we deal with that would be that we use functions to do all of our adding. We don't want to add directly to value in general. We want to just say, hey, this is how we add to it, and then we always use that. That way, as we make this class more complicated, it always reacts the same way to new data coming in. Okay, add to value, and that just says value plus equal change. Easy peasy. That's our entire stat class for today. Now, stat pack is a bit different. That one is going to get a little bit bigger than stat did. So, stat pack is a list of stats. List of stats equals that. Yes. Okay. Happy days. So list stats equals new list stat. Very simple. Nothing goes in our constructor. And then what we need to do is we need to be able to add a stat value. And we need to be able to get a stat value from its name. We need to get a stat from its name, and we need to set stat value. So those are the things that we need to do. So first things first, because it's going to be the actual most important, is we are going to say get stat from name. So public virtual stat get stat from name. And this does exactly what you might think it does. We're literally going to loop through stats based on a name, so string name, and then we're going to return it. On what happens if it doesn't exist, you might ask. We'll get to that in a second. So for, I don't know why I did that. For int I equals 0, I less than stats count I plus plus. If strange stat or stats I dot name equals name, then we return stat. Okay, happy days. So what happens if this isn't found? So that would be the case for which it doesn't exist. So maybe we should comment some of this. So find the stat and return it. If stat doesn't exist, add it. Return the added stat. Okay, so that's what we're doing. All right, so we're going to add the stat value here. We're going to have to create that function, and then we're going to return stats dot count minus 1. Okay, so we're returning the last one. So in order to add a stat if it doesn't exist, we are going to create that. So we have public virtual void add stat value. And then here we have string name float value. Now what this one's going to do is it's going to update the stat, and if it's not found, it's going to create the stat. So and then we will fill that in right here. Add stat value, and then we have name, and then I think I just gave it a 1. Yeah, a 1. Why 1? Let me quickly touch on that. Why 1? Well, if you do a 0 and then you divide by 0, you just broke the program. If you do a 1, you know, and you multiply by 1, then there's no problem. If you divide by 1, then there's no problem. If you add or subtract 1 from something, it's not that big of a deal, especially if the stat has 100. So whereas it creates small bugs, it doesn't create game-breaking bugs. And so 1 is much better than 0 to start with stats. Now, you do what you want. That's how I see it. Okay, in here, we are going to do the same loop here. I don't like when it does that. Okay, so find the stat, but instead of returning it, we would then add to value of our stat. So this stat I, or stats I, dot add to value. Simple stuff. And then in here we say bool found equals false, and then found is true. Then if not found, then we want to add it. So stats dot add new stat name value. Okay, so why do we do this? Well, we want to make sure that every stat that you ever ask for exists. If it doesn't exist, then it could break a program. So we want to make sure that it's added. So if you ask it for strength and strength doesn't exist, it's going to add it. If you have never added crit value to this character and you ask the stat for its crit value, it's going to give you crit value, right? It's going to do that. It's going to always have it. Now, there's one problem with this, and I'm going to address it, and it's obvious, but I want to mention it. So if you start mistyping your stat names and you start having spelling errors, you are going to have strength spelled, strength and then strength, right? You typoed it. But what you won't have is a crashing program. You will have a buggy program, but you will not have a crashy program. And crashy is much worse than buggy. Though crashy can be easier to diagnose at times, buggy is much more preferential for your user than crashy. And so I err on the side of buggy as opposed to crashy. Okay, so we did that. We added that in here. So this, we can now get a stat from its name. We can also add to the stat value. We need to be able to get a value from a name. So that's kind of pretty important. But it's really easy to do. We're going to write a function for it because I think that it's important, and oftentimes you're going to make this more complex than what I'm starting with here. So it's good to have the ability to control variables within the class better. Get value from name, and then here we're going to say string name, and it's very simple. Return get stat from name. Stat from name. We pass in name, but what we're going to return is value from. Right? So we know it's going to exist because we are not allowed to let it not exist. Right? We will return something, and we're going to give it its value. In this case, a new one would be 1, but we could also update it. Okay. Relatively simple stuff. And then the last thing we're going to do for our StatPack is we're going to do public virtual void set stat value. And then the reason we want this one is because we want to be able to say be this value. Don't add to it. Don't subtract from it. Blah, blah, blah. I want you to be this value. So string name and then float value. Stat temp stat equals get stat from name. Notice we keep using these functions, right? We're using them over and over and over again, and the reason we're doing that is because they do what we need them to do without having to write a bunch of code. So temp stat dot value equals value. Could you have done this one line? Yeah, you could have. You could have said this dot value equals value if you wanted. I just prefer it like this because I know eventually I'm going to add more to these functions, and it's going to be better this way. Okay, so that's our StatPack. Now, all units are going to have StatPacks. Public StatPack, StatPack, and then unit is going to add 1 for each base stat. Now, if you know anything about the way I feel about stats, more the merrier. So, whoops, StatPack. Oh, I call it stats here. That's the problem. Stats dot add stat value, and this will also add the stat. And then we're going to have strength. ENGTH. Okay. We are going to have 6 stats to start with. 2 base stats for each type of character. You have your in your face characters, your melee characters typically. You have strength and stamina. You have your kind of, high damage physical class stuff, and those are going to be sorry, my cat was in my blinds. Agility. Hopefully I'm spelling these right. Dexterity. And then you have your more caster-based stuff. Intelligence. Wouldn't be very intelligent to misspell that, right? Ha ha ha, dad jokes. Okay, so those are our 6 stats. Intelligence and spirit. You do what you want with your stats, but this is what I'm doing. So we're going to copy paste these all the way to mage and warrior. So we're going to give 6 stats. So notice though, well, actually we're going to use set stat, I think, actually. Let me double check. But yeah, we should be using set stat. So set stat value. We know the stat value already exists because unit declares them. So we're going to override them. I want there to be, we're going to use 20 to start with. 20 variables, or 20 attribute points for both warrior and mage. And I didn't save the warrior ones, but that's okay. We'll get there. Let's go with stamina 7, strength 5, agi, that's 12, yeah. Agi 3, that's 15, dexterity 3, that's fine. That'll work. Good enough to start with for warrior. Let's make sure I save that. And then we're going to take the same stuff. We're going to put it in mage. But instead of strength, which we'll put as a 1, stamina we'll probably put as a 3. Agi 2, 2. I think dexterity, I don't know. Let's see. We'll go, so what is that? 1, 4. Okay, I have 16 left. Let's go 7, 5, 12, 14, 16, 20, right? I'm not crazy? Yeah. So why 2 in agi and dexterity? Well, so I see dexterity as a offensive trait, and I see agility more as a defensive trait. Dexterity, you can decide that you want that to be important to your casters or not. Agility helps them dodge, so I mean it's not horrible to have some. Anyway, we're getting into the finer details, not all that important, but I wanted to mention why I was picking what I was picking. You do what you want. This is just how I'm envisioning the game that I'm envisioning right now. That's how I envision what to do. Okay, so now in new character screen, we need a whole lot of arrow selectors. So we need strength selector, stam selector, agi selector, dex selector, int selector, and spirit SPI selector. Okay, so we have all of these selectors. We're just gonna grab this guy here. We're gonna put out, I think that's 6. Strength, stamina, agi, dex, int, spirit. Okay, and then we come in and we are going to put in all the correct bits here. So let's go to mage and just grab this so I can copy paste because I don't like to type it all. We're just going to paste it right below. We're going to use those real fast. So strength, stamina, agi, dex, int, spirit. Get rid of these. Okay, we have change skin. We're gonna need change stat. St goes below it. Public virtual void change stat. Object info change stat. I think I got them all. I got them all. Okay. Past that, we're good. We've gotten everything put in. Happy days. Those are all our selectors. We are not going to create options for them yet, because what we're going to do, and right on load, we're going to do, say, change class. And we're going to change the class to warrior to start with. So warrior is the default. But when we change class, which is already in our class selector, perfect. When we change class, then we have to do the work of actually selecting what we're doing. So we have our activator class. I went over this last time. I don't like to type it because I get it wrong every time, but we're going to copy and paste it from our prompt and fix it. So instead of the prompt, it's going to be this. And then notice in the prompt I had two variables, but we'll go over what I just did real fast. Just give me a second. Okay, so we create a type, S-type, and that is equal type, get type, and then the name of our namespace, and then we add the value of the string. In this case, it'd be warrior, right? Because warrior is right here, right? And it's also in the namespace. So we have RPG tutorial warrior, and then here we have RPG tutorial, and this is warrior that we're passing in, and then true. I don't know what the true does, just you have to put it there. And then we are creating a hero, which we should do up here. Public hero, okay, and sweet. Okay, so this will create a hero and call the constructor, which in our case just needs a position. So if we come here, we say this is creating it, and what are we creating? The thing in S-type, which is RPG tutorial warrior or mage in the next case, and then we're giving it a position of 0. So that's what we're doing there. And then in here, we are going to clear all the options from these guys. So let's grab these guys, and we'll just delete stuff. So we're just going to delete out all the things, and then we'll get to fixing it all in a second. Minimal typing, guys. I hate typing too much, so if you can't tell, I just make lots of typos. I don't love it. Okay, so options dot clear, right? That's what we're doing. We're clearing all the options so that we know what's there is nothing. There's nothing there, and now we're going to add an option for each different stat to be equal to what the character is supposed to start with. So same guys here, but instead of options, we're going to do add option, and it's the same as up here, right? New form option, and then that we need a name and a value. Well, turns out that we kind of know what those are. We know that we want them to be the same as the stat value in our character. So that would be hero dot stats dot get value from name, and that name is going to be strength. And then our second value here, oh, that one wants to be a a string. So we can either concatenate to a string like that, and then it's a string, or we can do convert to string. In this case, I'm just going to do this, but yeah, because it's shorter. Hero dot stats dot get value from name, and then strength. Okay, that's simple, right? So basically we're saying strength for warrior, right, is like 5. Yeah, so this is going to put a 5 in and a 5. So instead of right here where it says warrior, warrior, it's going to be 5, 5. And then we're going to do the same thing to all of these stats. I hate the way it highlights things sometimes. Okay, so strength, stamina, stamina, agi, agi, dex, dex, intelligence, intelligence, spirit, spirit. Okay, so what have we done? We have created a hero. In this case, it'll switch between mage and warrior depending on what we select. Then we clear out what's already in there, and we add a variable. We're going to have more later, but we're going to start here. This is our basics. I am very over time already, so I'm going to stop after I'm done with this step, and then we'll do more with it next time. All right, so we have these things here, right? So let's just grab one of them. Doesn't matter which one. These are all arrow selectors. We need 6 more. Copy paste everything. Easy peasy. Lemon squeezy. My kids say that. I apologize. It's stuck in my head. Okay. Now these are 80 apart. We're going to start 100 apart, so there's a small gap, a small irregular gap, and then we're going to add 60. So that's 440. This is, oops, my 4 key is being stupid. Okay. 500. 560, 620, and 680. Okay, and then the next thing we need to do after updating them is we need to come down and we need to paste them for drawing. And remove these guys here. And that should give us the ability to swap heroes, and that will swap our starting attributes. Now, we need to be able to add attributes too, but we haven't gotten that far, and I'm out of time. So let's double check and test this, make sure. We just did a lot of coding with very little checking, and we broke some stuff. Okay. We have no reference of stats, the StatPack. Oh, we did not declare our StatPack because we noobs. Or at least I am. Unit. So in here we're just going to say stats equals new StatPack. Easy peasy. Let's try that again. Okay, here's our thing. We're going to hit play. That takes us here. Oh, that's not what was expected. So what did we do wrong here? Let's jump back to our new character screen. It's this stuff right here. Get stat from name value, or did I get the wrong thing? Let me get value from name, not get stat from name. That's the problem. Always nice when you do the right thing. Okay, that's better. Let's see what we get now. There we go. Play. There's our value. Now if I swap to mage, we would have expected that to change, and it didn't. So, change class. Let's see. Let's put a breakpoint in. Is it not hitting that? It's not even hitting it. Okay. Change class. Let's see. Go to solution. Go to definition. Buttons clicked. We go to arrow click right, arrow click left. We need to changed. Call changed. When you call it with the value of this thing, which is options selected value. Options selected value. I'm pretty sure is correct. Let me. Yep, option selected value. That's correct. And that needs to happen on the right click or the left click. This needs to be last because we need to do all of the edits on it before we actually call it. Okay, let's run that. Here we hit that. No problem. We also have to make one edit to that. I don't like the way that works, but notice now they switch their stats when you switch which class you have, which is great. That's what we want. Let's make one edit to what we just did in the arrow selector and say if, because we don't want this to break, we need to qualify this and say if changed not equal null, and then copy paste that to the other spot. That'll make the arrow selector that much more robust. Okay, guys, that's gonna be it for today. Our character class is really moving along. I'm trying not to make these hour and 2 hour long episodes, so I want to try to keep them bite-sized. I would like to have gotten in this episode to where we can edit our stats or attributes. What I'm going to do is for now, I'm just going to give you 5 attributes, and then I'm going to check the total number of attributes in the StatPack, which maybe is not the best way to do it, but you could also just check the 6 stats that we're looking at. And then you are going to, because you have 5 stat changes available, I'm going to add 5 plus 5 in single increments. So if you started at 5, it'd be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 are all available in that arrow selector, so on and so forth. But when we reach 25 total stats, it's going to lock out all the right arrows. Those are what we're going to do. To do that, we're going to have to edit our arrow selector a little bit more. But that is how we're going to do that, but we're going to do it next time. If you guys made it this far, really consider hitting that like button. It takes 1-2 seconds of your time, but it will make a huge difference for the videos. If you aren't subscribed, and I know that 90% of you aren't, as I've looked at the analytics, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It really helps me out, and then you'll get to see all the new videos as we continue with this series. And then, of course, you have the sharing. Sharing would be huge. If you have a friend or an acquaintance that you think this will be great, or a nephew or niece or son, daughter, whatever you think would be interested in learning to program video games. Originally, these things were made for kids, so it was made for my son. So they're there. 10 plus years old, I would say, is probably capable of starting on these things. Anyway, see you guys next time, and we will continue pushing on this character screen. Though I think we probably only have 1 or 2 more episodes before we'll be into starting to program the actual game. So have a good one, and I'll talk to you guys next time.